Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to sit with you today and chat with you. Um, I wanted to share a little bit about your background and experiences as a filmmaker.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a really exciting business. I do some work with the I call them the youths in Washington D.C.,
Mhm,
but they're actually
mhm.
young adults. They're under 30, and a few of them have been growing as filmmakers, Caribbean American filmmakers. And I love to hear their stories. They look out for stories and they write stories.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of you because I know you do film. You're a filmmaker, and you actually helped me with one of mine. So I wanted to delve a little bit into you and find out more about your background and experiences for the benefit of others.
Sure, sure, sure.
So my first question
Um,
to you is, I know we're going to get into you, Kevin. Based on the questions I'm going to ask you, our audience will hear a lot about you. So I'm not going to even go ahead to introduce you, unless
sure.
there's some burning question or something you wanted to say before we
No,
kick
no,
off.
no. I'm good. I'm good.
So what was your profession before you began your business?
Yeah, I was pretty much an educator. Still an educator because I'm still educating. From the time I got out of college, I went and taught at a high school, taught English at a high school, and I spent probably 18 years in the field of education, from teaching to administration. I've been in that career for the last 18 years.
Okay, wow, but you look like 18 to me. So the most you look like is maybe about 20. So it's surprising
Oh,
to hear that you're already grown up as in your career.
right. I
18
appreciate that.
years.
That's good. I got good genes.
So who or what motivated you to go into business?
Well, so I used to make a lot of videos for the schools that I was in. So I love telling the story because it actually had a beginning. Like, I know how to answer that question. When did it happen?
Yes.
I was excelling as a teacher, doing very well. But I just felt like there was something missing. Like, okay, I go to work every day and teach and prepare and have a good relationship with the students, but I was like, I just can't go every day, go and teach, go home, grade papers, go and teach for the next 30 years, right? So I'm super creative. So I was like, how can I make the students experience a really great experience, other than because we were at a private school, so we didn't have public school funding. So there wasn't like so many different clubs and lots of different sports. So the focus of that school was academics, right? So I said, how can I make the students experience better, and how can I be more engaged in my profession? So I decided to write a play, a stage play. And that turned out to be very well. It turned out very well. It had a lot of 500 people came to the play. It was a one show. So I wrote it, students performed it. It was big stage props, big set. And then I did another one the next year, and that one was just as successful. It was really great. So then I took the money that we raised and I started a communications department at the school. And so we bought back then, early 2000s or mid 2000s, bought a big iMac computer, bought a camera, big camera, had some wires run at the school so that we could have closed circuit television. And then we started to do the news. I had the kids coming in the morning, doing live news and preparing and doing all these different skits and commercials. And we had a whole show going on once a week. And I really was fired up by that. And the
Hmm.
students were fired up. I really, really loved that. So the next year I was like, well, doing a play is hard work because students have to memorize lines. And I remember the day before the second play, one of my lead roles, she said that she didn't think that she could come. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
goodness, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
oh.
She ended up coming, but that made me think this is just too much work. Like I relied too much on the students on that day. Anything could happen. So I said, you know what? I'm not gonna do a play this year. I'm gonna write a screenplay.
Okay.
So I made a movie that year. I wrote the script and the school funded it. And it turned out to be like a really big thing in the city. It was in the theater. It turned out really great. And so that was really that lit the fire under me that I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to become a filmmaker after I
Wow.
did that first film and the response. One of the things I remember being in the theater because I did a lot. So I wrote it, I directed it, I sat with the editor, I was helping with the light, I did everything, right? And so
Mhm.
I remember sitting on the red carpet premiere day, and it was a two balcony theater. So I was sitting on the second floor, and I know there was a part of the movie coming up where it was supposed to be funny, right? And then I was anticipating like how are people gonna respond to the words that I wrote, right? And so
Mhm.
what ended up happening is the whole audience bursted out with laughter, and I was like, wow, what a moment! Like a
Yes.
thought put
Yes.
the pen to
Into action.
paper
Yes.
and put on screen, and my thought corresponded with the thoughts of others
Mhm.
to instill an emotion that I thought was funny and everybody else thought was funny. I thought that was super powerful. And so from that moment on, I was like, I want to do this.
That's awesome. So what I'm gonna jump in here. So you mentioned the city. What city was that?
In Toronto.
Okay,
Toronto.
right. So we want to know, for our audience to know that, hey,
Sure,
this
sure,
guy's multifaceted, not
sure,
only
sure.
in the United States only, but also in Toronto. And I loved what you said about that idea first. And when that idea hits, the light bulb goes off, and then you see it into fruition.
Yeah,
There's nothing more. I'm a creator too. So
yeah,
I love that. And when you
yeah,
can
yeah,
see something come to fruition,
yeah, yeah.
that's really amazing. So I wanted to ask you another question, which I think has easily segue into what we're going to be talking about a little bit more. Tell us about your entrepreneurship venture. And I'm talking about how your evolution to what you're doing today.
Okay,
You
great.
spoke about it initially, how it began.
Mhm.
Now get into what you're doing today.
Yeah, no problem. So what ended up happening is wherever I went, I moved to the United States after a 10-year run in Toronto of my professional career. And I moved to the United States. And so when I moved there, I was the principal of a school, and it was a small private school, and we needed to do some marketing. So I decided to really just push a lot of videos, right? And so I would get the students together, I would make commercials, I would do music videos, and the people responded very well to this. I created a
Mhm.
website for the school, and people would come to the school and say, your school looks like so much fun. I want my child to be a
That's
part of what's happening at the school.
mhm.
And so over the next few years, I kept on edit because I make videos for my family, and I kept on making videos, and I wanted to get better and better. I would
Okay.
do research and make my edits. I found myself behind this computer just editing and editing and editing, trying to make things better. And then one day, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, how much for a video?" And in my mind, I wasn't in that place, right? I'm just doing it for the love of it, right? I'm
Uh-huh,
just doing
uh-huh.
it. And then when he said, this is an executive for a nonprofit organization he had an idea, and he wanted to make a documentary about the lives of some of the clients the lives that they were touching in that organization. And I was like, how much? I don't know, right? And so we talked it through. He told me what he needed, and we put a budget together, and they accepted it. And I jumped into it nervous. I jumped into it like, I mean, I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yes.
I knew that I had the basics to do it. I didn't know how good it was going to be, but I jumped
Yes.
in.
Yes.
And I didn't have all the equipment, but I had my skill in my mind,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I recorded this thing over a few months, and it was a pretty big pretty big budget for me, you know. Yeah. And it ended up in a local film festival, and it was
Wonderful.
in a theater, and documentary turned out pretty good for that time where I was in that skill level. And so from that day forward, I was like, well,
Okay.
if people are going to pay me, I might as well start a business.
Of course, you got to start the business. And what I like is what you shared about jumping in. And sometimes some people who follow me on Instagram may see me put out stuff about my doing a tandem jump, skydive.
Yeah.
And I did it because I wanted to do something different so my kids would know. My two girls that I have, they can know that sometimes you're afraid, but you jump anyway. So when I was jumping out of
Mm.
that little plane, it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever. And I didn't have the support of my older daughter because she thought I'm irresponsible and all of that. Now me, big woman,
Mhm.
deciding to jump. But jumping is sometimes we have to do it afraid. And now I tell, she has a son, my little grandson, RJ, and I tell him, just jump. Or more so
Mhm.
Xavier, because Xavier will jump. He's not
Yeah.
afraid to jump. And he will jump. So I say that to people all the time. That's like one of my mantras. You are afraid, but do it anyway.
Do
And
it
that's what
anyway.
I like. Somebody reach out to you, you have a business venture, or you have an idea, a love, and a passion. And I always also talk about passion in the sense of who are you, and passion in the sense of doing the business based on your passion. And we can think of Usain Bolt, another favorite that I have. And he's running,
Yeah.
but it's all out of passion. He's not running he's running to win, but
Yeah.
naturally at the time, he just won. He ran and he won. He captured awards and is well known throughout the world because of his antics simply because of his passion of doing what he loves. So your story began and came to fruition because of your passion and your love for
Yeah. For sure.
filmmaking. And you're doing it not only that way, but to connect. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but you ended up connecting the school that you were a principal for to the community until it became a business, and people outside of the school started asking you, hey, can you do this to me? And then you went into your film, if the
Yes.
festival. So
Yeah.
it evolved, and that's why I like talking to people like yourself to show how a business can evolve. Now I wanted to go to the next question that I have to ask you. Maybe you answered it already, I'm not sure. But many businesses have that moment that they call their big break. I don't know. Do you think your big break has already gone based on the stories that you've told me? Or do you think there's something else that you wanted to share with us now?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've had my big break, but I would say that there are big moments,
Right.
like that moment that I realized when I made that movie, um, that, oh, this is what I want to do. So I call it a big moment that lit that fire under me.
Yeah.
And then the other moment I shared with you already, when the man asked me, you know, how much,
Right.
right? That was a moment for me. That was a
Wow,
moment.
this
Yeah.
thing can become
Yeah.
bigger than I'm thinking.
Right, right. That was a moment for me. In terms of big break, no, that has yet to happen. One thing I will share is that I have been, a lot of people in Toronto used to call me the Tyler Perry of Toronto,
Mhm.
in my little community
Yes,
that I
yes.
belong to. And so what I did was I really admired Tyler. So I used to email him multiple times a year, every year, to tell him, hey, I love what you're doing. I'm also, you know, I'm an admirer. I do the same thing at a very, you know, small level. I'd love the opportunity to work with you. And I would send this email over and over and over and over for years. And I never got a response. I never got a
Mhm.
response from him. And it never let me down, though,
Right.
because I believe that that is part of the process. I feel like one day he might see those emails, or those emails, my perseverance for that will
Yes,
help
yes,
me in another situation,
yeah,
right?
yes.
Um,
So that's great. And when you mentioned about reaching out to Tyler Perry, it struck me because another story I tell is of my favorite writer, Stephen King, one of my favorite writers. He's a very creative character. But what struck me and why I like him, I like his beginning story,
Mm-hmm.
because he wrote and wrote and wrote, and he would send out millions of letters all the time, sending his manuscripts here or there, and he would get back a rejection, and he would put them on his wall.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, it happened where he was writing this story, and he threw it in the trash. Went to work. He was a school teacher too, I think it was, and he went to work, and his wife was cleaning up, and she was in the kitchen, and she saw the manuscript in the trash, and she picked it up and started reading it and said, "Oh my God, this is good." When he came home, she said, "Why did you throw this out? This is good." And the rest is history, because that's where he got his big break from. Because he said, "You think so?" And then he wrote and sent it out, and they actually paid him for it. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my God, this is something else." So he got his real big break came from that. I think it was the Carrie, which ended up becoming a movie and all. And I shared that with you because I told you that some of the things that I do in Washington, D.C. with Institute of Caribbean Studies, a lot of the younger adults under 30 years old have become filmmakers, and their stories are interesting to me. Again, that's the reason why I also wanted to chat with you, because I know as creators, you have interesting stories, and others who are coming up can learn from persons who have been there. So my next question is,
I wanted to
go
share.
ahead, go ahead,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I wanted to share that, my idea after I made that first movie, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a filmmaker. I'm going to make a
Right.
filmmaker. So I'm going to, make big films. But what I've come to realize is I haven't made a major movie since then. I've right now I'm working on a documentary that's going to be about 45 minutes, but I realize I'm still a filmmaker, so I still tell stories in small pieces. So,
Right.
I currently, my wife and I own a business, a
Mm-hmm.
social media marketing business,
Mm-hmm.
where I help to tell stories, but with through the video. So,
Right.
I'm constantly, I've made hundreds and hundreds of videos for business owners over the last since 2016. I can't even count
Mm-hmm.
them. And so you might think, or filmmakers who are coming up, they want to make the big picture movie, right? No,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't necessarily have to make that
No.
big film, right?
Right. Right.
You could be making, because the way
Right.
social media is, you could be making
Right.
short, compelling stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still a filmmaker because
Of
you're
course.
telling stories through video.
Of course, and that's the greatest idea, I think, because the impact that nowadays with our society as it is, we're telling small stories in our local community, and then what we find is that that local community expands, and it goes back to what you mentioned about that film festival that you were a part of. So the smaller community breathes out into the wider community, and that's where one day something will pop out and say, "Oh my God, KC Films."
Mhm.
So any challenges that you wanted to share as you look back, any challenges you want to share that you have overcome or you're still overcoming, or tell me, any
Yeah,
challenges
yeah,
at
yeah,
all?
for sure. Um, having to work and be creative. So, working a full-time job where your employer demands all your time, right?
Yes,
And then
yes,
wanting to grow a business
yes,
that is time consuming and takes your creativity, which anybody who's creative, you need energy to be creative. You
right.
can't be creative and
Tired.
tired, right? You can't. And so that was a major struggle.
Yes,
In 2016, I quit principalship to start my business, and I did that for 2 years, and then another opportunity came for me to go back into the education sector, to kind of marry the two, film and video,
yes.
and then now I'm at the point where I'm full-time entrepreneurship again.
Okay.
Um,
So that's actually pretty great. And I will jump in here to mention my book, Ditch It or Switch It. And that book really talks about ditching your job, because if you're doing something like what you said you were doing and you're doing it part-time and tired, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. But before anybody decides that they're going to say, Dr. Shelley decided to tell them that they're to jump out of their job, no, you got to prepare. So I'm
mhm,
sure you didn't just do it overnight. You had
for
to prepare yourself. You got the tools and equipment together. There's a
sure.
process that you followed. Your business evolved. You created the business. You formulated the business, and you also made sure that you had some form of substantial income that can sustain yourself. In your case, I believe you have some support with you mentioned your wife, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So we have a social media marketing business,
right,
and then so we're kind of married the two businesses, but I still have KC Films and Media, so that I do bigger project
right,
commercials for us.
right,
So we're totally like together. So I was working, she was running the business.
right,
And growing the business, I was
right.
able to support that, and then it got to the point where we have to come together.
Right.
Um,
And that's what I'm referring to in that sense that sometimes when people are alone and you're doing the business by yourself,
mhm.
sometimes it's not as successful. And I'm sharing this based on my research that I did with leaders of heads of organization. Most of them were married and they had someone at home who's covering the bills. While, as you know, as a new business owner, when you're just starting out, it's not as profitable.
Right.
So you have to have that quality of resilience.
Resilience.
What other quality you think could be great
Um,
based on what you know you've done?
so you definitely have to have the ability to problem solve, right?
Exactly.
You got to
Yes.
have that because um, you're going to face some very difficult times because bills don't stop, right? They
They
don't stop.
don't.
They don't pause based
I
on
know. And they
your
can
ebb and
say,
flow,
my
your cash
passion
flow.
is there. You gotta
Yeah.
wait. I'm coming.
No.
It's coming. No.
So it takes a lot of resilience, like you said, and the problem solving, and you got to be able to push through perseverance,
Right.
right? You got to
Right.
be able
That's
to
it.
push through it because if you don't put yourself in the position to receive the blessing,
Right.
that blessing you won't if you give up too soon, you won't get it. Like you see these
Exactly.
images of a staircase, and people are on the staircase and they get to a point where they're about to give up, but there's a break in it. If they just get one more step, the blessing is waiting for them if they just take one more
If
step.
they
So
just say.
I'm always thinking about that one more step. So
Uh-huh.
it helps me to keep going. And then another thing is for the entrepreneurs out there, you have to get to the point where, and this is where we are. Our services that we provide are really good, but
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be creating products that don't require us to actually do the work. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
require me being up at night editing video, right?
Right.
So
Right.
having
Right.
products that can, help us to sustain. Maybe we're
Right.
having some issues with our clients. Maybe we lose a few clients, but we
Right.
have a product that's selling,
Right. Right.
like you have a few books, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
maybe when things, maybe you have a lot of bills this month. Maybe your book sales are going to help
Yes.
leverage, right? So
Yes.
being able to diversify your
Right.
services, your products, trying to have
Right.
different things
Right.
going to support you as an entrepreneur.
So that means your business is evolving, it's
It
growing
is
up. And as
evolving.
you grow up, you mature. So when you're
Absolutely.
maturing, then you diversify. And it
Absolutely.
goes on and on and on. All right. So I know we spoke a little bit about we're winding down, but your daily motivation. I wanted to ask you this question. What's your daily motivation? And as I'm asking you that, how do you remind yourself of what's important?
Yeah. So my daily motivation is using the blessing that God gave me, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
motivated. Like I don't want to not use that gift that God gave me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
realize that it's a blessing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a gift, and I want to use that for other people. If God gave it to me, and it's a gift for me, then I'm supposed to give that to somebody else, and that's going to help a business, help. So using the gift is my motivation, and
Yes.
the second part of your question was what again?
How do you remind yourself of what's important?
Yeah, I mean, I have my family around me, right? And
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
involving them, I've been making videos with my family for since they were babies. And so
Uh-huh.
I also involve them in what I do. And so as a result, one of my two daughters has a love and a passion for filmmaking, and her major
Uh-huh.
in college is actually going to be film
Awesome.
and TV production. And
Uh-huh.
so, and so just having my daughters and my wife around me is always something that keeps me
Motivated there. So
motivated and
so so
focused.
if I ask you your hobbies, would it be any different?
I know, right? No, it used to be sports. Used to be sports.
Okay, so who used to be? Why no longer?
Yeah,
Because you're
no,
18?
injuries,
No,
injuries.
because you're 18. No injuries, because you're
Right, right,
18.
right, right, right. Used to be
That's good.
sports.
So again, I'm wrapping up, but I wanted to ask you this fun question, I think. 7 days, 6 nights, all expenses paid. What's your vacation destination?
That's a great question.
7 days, 6 nights. What do you think? All expenses paid. Where would be your dream destination?
You know, this is a tough question because there are places that I want to go
Uh-huh.
that I'm not certain that I will enjoy the food. So I can't enjoy a vacation unless I am indulging in the food of the place where I'm at. So you know, I don't want to say I want to go to Jamaica, but that food in Jamaica is just off the chain. But maybe Hawaii, Hawaii.
Okay.
Uh, um,
So I had your favorite food as my next question, but you seem to be answering it there.
oh yeah, yeah.
So what's your
Jamaican food
favorite
is by
food,
far.
Jamaica?
Jamaican food is by far my favorite food.
Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. I know I used to travel a lot for work, and some people did walk with their food because they were worried. We're
Yeah,
going to all of these Latin American countries
yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah, 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 yeah.
not sure about the food. Say, no, that ginger, they walk with the ginger just in case.
And I mean, and I'm a little picky, so
Right. All right. So my favorite guilty pleasure is, and that is whether it's a movie, TV program, or type of music. What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
yeah, I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of movies. Like
And it all
while
ties back into what you
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. I watch a lot of movies, and while I'm working, and I'm always looking for the next great movie because and I don't watch movies just like regular. Like I'm analyzing the movies and looking at the
Right.
film techniques and, you know. So I watch a lot of shows and movies. That's definitely I put a lot of hours into that.
So I have my older daughter Monique. What she does is I hate watching movies with her because one of my guilty pleasures. I just if I want to relax, because I write books and stuff, so I
Yeah,
find that place to write, and that's me. But then when I want to relax and to get rid of the stress, because I do a lot of stuff, so I'm always stressed, so to speak, and I just watch a movie. That's
hmm.
what really takes me from somewhere. And then I
Right.
find also it inspires me to even write more.
Yes,
So as
yes.
you mentioned that, I'm thinking about it, but it's not nice to do it with Monique because guess what she's doing? She studied film
Yeah.
and all of that in college. Her degree is in art history and
Mhm.
all of that. So she ends up analyzing the movie,
Yeah.
not from I analyze, but not from the perspective of
Yeah, yeah,
analyzing.
yeah, yeah,
She analyzes it based, okay, so who did that? And she's talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
Paramount, okay, that's it. And she's doing all of these things. That is, as far as I'm concerned, not necessarily enjoying the
Yeah,
movie.
no, no, no. I don't go that far. I definitely need to enjoy the movie. So sometimes
Well,
I
I
just
think
let
hers
it
is
be.
really art
Yeah.
and travel. So when she gets to the movie point and you're sitting and watching her, she's analyzing. She loves movies that talk about the history and
Okay.
going to places that are out of there. So I'm just sharing that with you because you mentioned yours.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
do understand movies, and I guess it comes back into a passion of for me. In my case, it's writing. So
Right.
Kevin, thank you so much for chatting with me. And as I close, is there anything that you'd like to share, or can people contact you with your business and
Yeah,
stuff? Anything like that you want to share?
sure. Thank you for the interview. I really appreciate it. And it's good to keep fresh the journey that everybody's on,
Yes,
right? And be
yes,
able to articulate the journey so
yes.
that you can help to motivate others who are in the thinking process and have kind of some gifts and talents or are thinking about starting a business. And
Mm-hmm,
it's daunting, you know.
mm-hmm.
You get scared, but I would tell anybody, and we're trying to groom our daughters to think, entrepreneurial,
Right,
and
right,
I would say, go for it. Start
right,
small and just
right,
plug away, plug away.
right,
Uh,
right.
you can find me on Instagram, KC Films and Media, and I have a Facebook page, and everything for me is KC Films Media. So
Okay, YouTube.
YouTube, Kevin Cameron on
Okay,
YouTube. Mhm.
okay. Okay, so perfect. Great chatting with you, and thanks. My name is Dr. Shelley Cameron, and I'm an author, coach. All about me, everything about me is all about personal growth for individuals, whether it is the entrepreneurs, new authors, new writers. It's all about personal growth. How can you go from here to there? And I do a lot of career as well, career change. Again, about my book, Ditch It, Switch It. So it has been a pleasure chatting with you, and I can be found at shelleycameron.com. Thank
Thank you,
you.
doctor. Appreciate you.